Welcome back. Today, I want to go through 5 steps for strategic planning success. So, a lot of you are directly involved in strategic planning initiatives, you're spearheading that. And if you're not, as a chief of staff, you're often indirectly or tangentially involved in the strategic planning for the leadership team and or the company. So this episode is, think of it like a appetizer sampler platter or a wine flight of strategic planning. So I'm going to hit 5 steps that are either overlooked or maybe they're well known, but they're not executed as best as they could be. So we'll dig in here and you'll see what I mean. The first one is mission and vision. So this one you're probably familiar with, but a lot of people just slide over this one and you've got to spend some time here. So mission is why your company exists at all. What's your purpose? Why do you exist at all? And your vision would be if you take your goals and objectives and mission and you work to those things and accomplish those things, how is the world different? What positive impact have you made on your customers or constituents? And the vision should be audacious and inspirational and big and forward looking and future looking and all those things. So, mission and vision, define those things clearly, spend some time there. So, it might be an offsite where you just get away from everything else. And as a leadership team or whatever set of people you want to have at that, you really talk through, like, who are we and what are we about and what are we trying to do in the world? If you don't have a clear mission and vision statement, I always think about it like if you're flying a plane and you might have the state of the art plane and you might have all your instrumentation dialed in and your dashboard and you can see these readings and you can see this stuff over here and all that is dialed in, but you don't know where you're going. What's the point? You're flying nowhere. You're flying in circles. So you have to know your destination. You have to know what everything is pointed toward. So define your mission and vision. Second one is a fast follow, which is define your customer. Define your customer. A lot of people skip over this. They're like, oh, I know my customer, blah, 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 blah. You got to know your customer segmentation. Sometimes you'll have multiple customer segments and customer targets. You've got to go into like the avatar, people call it different things, the profile, but who is your ideal customer? What are they thinking about? What are they concerned about? What would make their life easier? Where do they congregate? Where are they consuming their information? Who are they talking to about things? When they're talking about your particular product or service, whose names are coming up? Where do they go to for that information? All of that stuff needs to be clearly defined. And spend some time here too, because defined means like HD, like high definition. You need to define this crystal clear. Customers can be both external and internal. So customers, most of the time we think of external customers, which is great. Definitely define your customers there. You can have internal customers as well. It could be the case of, all right, for delivery to the external customer, it takes these 3 teams. And there's a handoff point at each stage. Okay, well then in some respects, the team 2 is customer for team 1. So making sure that handoff is smooth and making sure you know what your customer needs is important. Another way that can happen is, let's say you have shared services. So shared services support multiple teams across the organization. All right, well, if I'm in charge of shared services, then I have multiple internal customers throughout the organization. How do I best serve them? How do I make their lives easier? What do they care about? All of those things need to be asked in the same way as external customers. So define your customer, high definition for external and internal customers. Third one, take a current state assessment. So we talk about strategic planning. The first thing we need to know is where are we today? And then where are we trying to get to? So our current state and our desired future state. So current state assessment has 2 buckets here, internal and external as well. So internally, well, first of all, it could be how are we doing on our previous goals? So we had strategic objectives and KPIs from last year, from the last period we did this. How are we doing on those? And for a lot of people, that might be an exercise of, let me blow off the dust of these things because we haven't looked at them in a year plus. And let me figure out, oh yeah, that's what they were again. So it could be looking at those. It could be saying, are these still the right ones? If so, great, awesome. Measure how you're doing. Measure what you need to do differently or the same going forward. If it's like, this is so antiquated, this is so out of date, things have changed so much, you might have to change that in a wholesale manner. So internal internal could be the last set of goals and strategic plan that you had. It could be the financial statements. So the normal, where are we doing with revenue? What do our expenses look like? Where are we with profit, EBITDA, all these things, market penetration, customer wallet, all these different areas of finance. It could be how does our debt look? That's an important one. It could be culture. So how are our folks doing? Are people in a good spot? Are they excited? Oh my gosh, we see the growth. We see the traction in the market. People are getting excited. They're getting momentum. We feel this happening. Or did a round of layoffs go through? Or did an M&A go through and people are now saying, hey, there's two of me, there's two of our teams, and one of them is going to get made redundant. What is the culture like? Are you fostering a culture of innovation? Are people free with ideas? Are people free with feedback and conversations and dialogue? Or is it pretty zipped up? Everyone's in a defensive crouch posture and trying not to get beat up or trying not to get one in the solar plexus. So what's the culture look like? So those are the internal things of current state assessment. Externally, it could be things like what's happening in our industry. Is there a new technology that's about to game change our industry? Are we on top of that? It could be the macro economic events that are happening worldwide. It might be an upcoming event. So, for instance, at the time of recording this, it's a presidential election year in the US. And so, if you are working in government or something related to that, the outcome of that election may have a very big impact on your organization. And even if it's not directly related, it might have an indirect impact because a lot of the times when a president is elected, the market might shift in a certain way. And so if that is something that you have to pay attention to, is that on your radar? Is that on your horizon in your current state assessment? So current state would be a panoramic view of what's happening in your industry, in the world, and in your company. All right. So once you have that, we move on to number 4, which is budget and resource allocation. So many people miss the mark on this. They either don't do it at all or they kind of like half do it in a really janky way. So budget allocation, put your money where your mouth is. If you're asking people to do these things, to go after this mission, this big, hairy, audacious goal, and you're asking them to do something different or perhaps more, and you're not giving them the resources, the tools, the training, the knowledge to do that, well, you're kind of asking them to do something and then tying one hand behind their back. So put your money where your mouth is. It could be, all right, we're going to make some significant investments into reskilling a portion of our staff. It could be, all right, as a mission, as a strategic objective, we're going to change our model a little bit and say, instead of going after these one-off, one and done sales that are more transactional, we are going to move into the enterprise market and say, all right, we want to tackle these big customers and we want to be able to serve them well. And so we need to reskill our sales team to go from a sales cycle that averages 10 days to now a sales cycle that takes 6 to 9 months. And it's a much different conversation with a much different customer. So we've defined our customer segment, we've defined the person that we're selling to, and now we're giving people the tools they need to be able to do the job we're asking them to do. That could take significant investment over time. And it might be over 18 to 24 months to reskill all of your sales force. So that speaks to budget allocation. So put your money where your mouth is in terms of budget allocation. The other side of that is compensation. So tying people's bonus typically to the strategic plan. So I'm asking you to do these things. We've prioritized these things as a business, and here are your priorities as a team and individual. So if and when you hit those, you're going to be rewarded for it. And so everything is aligned, not only in the mission and vision we're sharing with you, not only in the strategic objectives and KPIs, but also in the financial compensation in your bonus package. So make sure that budget is aligned or else you're going to lose people. People are motivated by different things, sure, but money is a big one. So make sure you have all of that aligned. The fifth one would be initial rollout and the communication there, and then ongoing governance. So I kind of combined two, but initial communication is uh, it might be okay. As a leadership team, we've discussed the mission and the vision. We've defined our customer in HD. We have taken a look at the current state internally and externally. We've even aligned the budget and people's bonuses. Great, we're done. We know what's happening. We're done. No, if the rest of your team doesn't know what's happening, then you're going to be lost at sea. If the organization has maybe heard rumors or maybe have some side conversations with their boss, and then how does that compare with what you're hearing from your boss? But we haven't gotten any official communication about that. That's not effective either. So think of this as like an internal marketing campaign. You are doing a fully fledged internal marketing campaign for your strategic plan. You are winning hearts and minds. You are getting people on board. You are getting people bought in. You are collecting their feedback and incorporating it into the strategic plan where it makes sense. It's a fully fledged internal marketing campaign. So that can look a number of ways, but some key pieces there could be, all right, let's have an all hands meeting. So our CEO or our leadership team explain and roll this thing out. It could be follow-up conversations where we have the kickoff, all company, and then it goes to the department and team level. So those leaders are talking with their teams about what's specifically happening and what this means for their specific team. It could be ongoing follow-ups. So, okay, we had this initial kickoff and we're going to say, we're going to check in with you next Thursday at 2 p.m. or next month at the middle of the month. Make sure you have those follow-ups in place. It could be pulse surveys to check on how people are receiving this information and what they're thinking about it. It could be newsletter updates. If you have a company newsletter that goes out, all right, well, here's the progress we're making on the strategic plan. We're getting this thing stood up. We're getting our goals defined. Here's what's happening with the leadership team. Here's where you can expect to hear from us next. It could be, um, feedback loops. So people want to be involved in the strategic plan, even if it's just for their team or department. So maybe the corporate level strategic plan and goals are set, and that is what it is, and that's fine. But they can be involved in, okay, I see where we're trying to get to, and here's how my team and here's how my day-to-day contributes to that. And so having people be involved in that is a really cool way to get the process started and to get that initial rollout going. The ongoing governance, that is just as important because if you do a big bang and kick it off and then it's crickets and tumbleweeds for the rest of the year, people aren't going to stay engaged. And so you want those proactive checkpoints built in. So those can happen in a number of ways, and those typically happen at quarterly, monthly, and or weekly points. And who is involved in each one of those intervals kind of depends on how your company or team is set up. But I would be at least touching base with the entire company quarterly, and then maybe it's directors or above or VPs or above monthly, and then leadership team might be weekly. But you're checking in on your strategic plan and your set objectives and or KPIs in that process. You can also continue to do the internal marketing campaign. So maybe there's a big kind of launch for it in the first 90 days, but then it could be a slow drip marketing campaign throughout the rest of the year. And that could be things like, um, continued pulse surveys. It could be, hey, we asked for feedback in this area. We had a great idea come from this person in this team, and we've actually started to implement that. So we're listening to you guys. If you guys have any feedback, reminder, send it to this alias or talk to your manager or drop it in the lunchroom box for ideas, anything to get that engagement ongoing. It could be if you have a newsletter, it might be incorporating success stories in that newsletter. So, oh my gosh, like we rolled out this strategic plan. We had these objectives and KPIs that were specific for this department that this department and team helped create, and their department and team goals roll up to our corporate goals. And I just want to tell you about Jared and Lauren. They freaking crushed it. Let me tell you about how they helped a client in this new way. It helped us meet all of our goals. They went above and beyond. This is excellence. This is excellent. This is an example that I want to share with you. So you can bake some of those things in. not only to encourage and motivate and share success across the company, but also reinforce your strategic plan. Like they were doing their job to help the strategic plan, and then they get recognized and rewarded for it. And you have different ideas going out about how you can do that. Because if you hear a success story every month or every 2 weeks, whatever your newsletter goes out, all your people are listening and learning to those different ways. Oh, okay. Like if they're doing that, the equivalent in my department might be this. So all of those things are happening on an ongoing basis. Okay. Whoa. Let me slow down. That was 5. That was the 5, right? Yeah. Mission. Define the mission and the vision. Define your customer. Take the current state assessment. Align your budget and resources. So budget resource allocation. And then initial rollout and ongoing governance or checkpoints. All right. I'm going to throw in 2 bonus ones just because I'm on a roll here. So the first bonus one is for strategic objectives, which most people are familiar with that term. It's how we're getting to the mission. Don't go for short-term wins that cause long-term losses. So don't sacrifice long-term success just to get the quick hit. A lot of times you'll see people say, let's get the numbers up this quarter. We got to get the numbers up this quarter. We have a board meeting coming up. And so they'll make certain decisions to try to hit the number. And they might do that in lieu of investing and spending time and energy on a longer term play and a foundational piece that they're going to need to have long term success, but they're wanting to get the numbers up for that quarter, that board meeting. Now, sometimes that's fine to get a quick win or to get a short term or intermediate term goal met. But if you do that perpetually over and over and over again, and you never get to the long term goals, you never get to setting the foundation, then you're setting your company up for disaster eventually. You're not going to be able to sustain the business that way. So when you're setting your objectives, make sure you have a mix and a balance of all types of intervals. So short term, intermediate term, and long term. All right. And that's especially becomes apparent in the budget allocation. So a lot of people just fund the quick hit stuff and they don't slow drip or have a payment plan, so to speak, for the longer term 3 to 5 year initiatives or 5 to 7, even 10 to 15. But if you don't set that foundation, that becomes a springboard for short term and intermediate term goals going forward. You're not giving yourself like solid ground to stand on. So make sure you do short term wins and you do long term success when you're doing your strategic objectives. The second bonus one I'll say is for KPIs, so key performance indicators. 2 things here, actually. First of all, don't try to boil the ocean with KPIs. I have 568 KPIs. Whoop-de-frickin-do, that does you no good. What are your key performance indicators? So what are the most relevant? What are the most representative of what you're trying to show and demonstrate that you're doing? So that's my first piece on KPIs. Second one is not only do you want to measure how we're doing, not only do you want to measure, are we moving in the right direction? You want to measure the rate of growth, the rate of progress. So a KPI should tell you, are we moving closer to our goal or further away? That's step 1. That's a good step. Step 2 is how quickly are we progressing? How quickly are we improving? What's our acceleration rate look like? And an example of this might be, all right, we've got our current state, we've got our desired future state. We're making progress, we're moving closer, but how fast are we doing that? All right, at the current rate, we will accomplish our goal in 178 years. Okay, that might be fine. If you have a very long-term goal and company that's going to be around, okay. For most of us, that's too long. So that's a data point to say, oh, okay, hold on. Let's at least talk about that and revisit that and say, is it because this is just getting started and it's just getting out of the gates, and so we expect some more momentum and an increase in the rate of progress to follow? Okay, let's watch for that. Well, our industry is seasonal, so we're in a down season, and next quarter it should pick up. So we'll look for that. Okay. It could be, maybe our premise, maybe our theory for that KPI or strategic initiative was a little bit off. Maybe we need to tweak it or fine tune it. Maybe we need to wholesale throw it out and course correct in an entirely different direction. But all of those are really good conversation pieces to have, which get picked up in the checkpoints, by the way, that you build in ongoing, and you get early warning signs of, oh, this is a little bit off, or maybe it's deviating. But set up those KPIs. So one, they're manageable, they're giving you the most relevant information. And two, it's also measuring that rate of acceleration, growth, progress, whatever you want to call it, to see how quickly you're going to get to your goal and if that's an acceptable rate or if you need to adjust that in some way. By the way, on the flip side, if you're going too fast and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is going crazy, but we're burning our people, we're burning our resources and budget, that might be too fast in some way. So you want to make sure you dial that piece in as well. Okay, so I'm going to call it a wrap there. I get really excited about this stuff, guys. So if you want to know more about strategic planning and you want to know if your team is ready for strategic planning and success in that area, I have a checklist that I'll leave the link in the show notes. You can download that free one-pager checklist. It goes through some of these items we've discussed now and some others. So have a look at that if you're directly involved or indirectly involved in strategic planning. And then if you have questions, like any sort of specific scenario where like, Emily, I've got this going on. What do I do with this? I love talking about this stuff. I nerd out hard on it. So just shoot me a message on LinkedIn and tell me what's up, and I'll do my best to support and add value and answer the question there. So, all right, that has been 5 steps for strategic planning success. Go forth, be good chiefs of staff, be good leaders, and I'll talk to you next week on leveraging leadership.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.